Welcome to the History of the Bow series here on the Push Podcast. In this series, we are engaging with subject matter experts from around the world to better understand the role of the bow and arrow and how it shaped the human race. We'll chat with archaeologists to anthropologists and PhDs at the finest universities to modern historians of this beautiful weapon. We'll jump around through history from the earliest humans using a bow to the Bronze Age, from the Iron Age to the medieval times, from the Golden Age of the European longbow to the widespread use of the weapon by Native Americans. And finally, how the introduction of gunpowder transformed this weapon to become an iconic tool for the modern traditional bow hunter and the earliest pioneers of our sport. Listen in as we build out the history of the bow and arrow with the help of the greatest minds and historians from around the world. This is the history of the bow. Get primal. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Push Podcast and Videocast. On the mics with me today, Mr. Gene Hopkins, our traditional archery historian. Brother, what's going on?
I just got back from the Compton Rendezvous this weekend. Fantastic time at the new location in Noblesville, Indiana.
Nice.
I think it came off pretty clean, for the first year in a new location, new people, some new people on the board of Compton. Some people carry over, but I think all in all, I think we had a really good time. I got a lot of good feedback from the attendees. We had 80 something vendors.
Oh, wow. 80.
Campgrounds were all full. Shooting ranges were packed. And I think, from the people I talked to, it was pretty successful.
That's amazing. That's so good. How many people total do you think attended?
Yeah, I honestly don't have an answer to that. My role at the rendezvous is to take care of the vendors. And so with that role, I was pretty occupied all weekend. So I didn't get time. I didn't get time to go up and do a count. And, like Kenny Rogers said, you don't do the counting until the dealing's done.
There you go.
I think they're still doing some counting.
Yeah, that's great. So how did everything else go? Like, did you see any cool bow collections? Did you see any cool memorabilia that might have tickled your fancy?
Oh, I got to tell the story. David Schneider down at Whiskey City Archery.
Oh, yeah.
He's just a class guy. He walked in. He said, "Hey, I want to talk to you." We went outside. He had a sack. And in the sack, he had the pith helmet, the African safari helmet that Howard Hill used in 1950 in Africa when he filmed the movie Timbo. He took the hat out of the sack, handed it to me, and he said, "I want you to have this. I want you to put this in your collection. That's where it belongs." So amazing item, but even a more amazing man that would do something like that. He just handed it to me,
Wow.
That's the kind of guy.
Dude, he's awesome. David's a badass dude.
He is. It also reflects on the kind of people that we get to come to events like the Compton Rendezvous or the PBS events. It's just salt of the earth people.
Absolutely. 100%. That's so cool. David's an awesome dude. Whiskey City.
He is.
He holds great shoots, has great products on his website, and also he has his ear to the collector side of the community for sure. He certainly does. That's so cool.
He's not afraid to share. He's just a pleasant man to be around, but he's not afraid to share with others. And that's not unusual in the traditional community. But I spent a lot of years in the compound community too, and there's a lot of good people there. I'm not saying that, but it's a different mindset in the trad community.
For sure. 100%. That's great. That's great to hear that Compton went well. New location, and it'll be there again next year.
Too early to say absolutely yes, but all indications are I'm on the Compton board of directors, so I have a little bit of inside information, right? But we did sign for this first year. We just signed a 1-year contract with the county park there in Hamilton County, the Kitaway Park, Strawtown Park. We wanted to try them out. They wanted to try us out. And I can tell you, when the Hamilton County Parks personnel came on site, they were like, "My God, I didn't know this was this big. I didn't realize how expansive this was going to be." You know, we filled it up, um, and they were smiling. So I think, you know, as we talk about the next year and the next year and the next year, I am personally hopeful that we're going to work something out for a longer term arrangement with them.
Oh, that'd be great. That'd be really great. Yeah, it's just nice to have a long term commitment on a event like this, not having to
Yeah.
worry about moving. Like I'm sure you guys went through a lot of work and effort to try to move locations and
Yeah.
get ready for this in a year period of time.
Right. You know, not everybody understands why we moved, but I'll just give a quick overview of why did we leave Michigan in the first place. Well, we had been in Michigan for 25 years, and we were hosted by the Berrien County Sportsman's Club. They came to us a couple of years ago and said, you know, we're not getting many new members. And us old members we're tired. We've been doing this for 25 years. Uh, we think it's time that we just don't want to do it anymore. So would you look for a new place? And as you said, it's not easy to find a location where you can host something this big. We did look around at several different locations, but to find something where you can host something this big that has enough land, has enough targets, has a course, but you also have to consider you have to have the people. It
Hmm.
takes 50, maybe 75 people to put something like this on. So where are you going to find a location that's got this much land, that's got this much experience hosting archery events, that has this many volunteers for parking, for food, for registration? Um, the places that we could look at were pretty limited. And thank God, you know, Cataway Park was there for us. And they're a full-time archery park. If you haven't been there, uh, it's a full-time year-round archery park. They don't do this just on a weekend for us. They're having events all year long. And the county is committed, fully committed to making this an archery destination for the Midwest.
How do you spell that? The park?
Koteewewi, and it's pronounced Kitewe. It's a Native American historical site. Um, a lot of the tribes from Indiana were centered in that area. Did you find it?
I did.
Okay. And the commitment that the county is making to this is just spectacular. They have committed $5.6 million dollars to build a new building that is going to house, it's going to be big enough. They can hold Olympic shooting events
Really?
inside. It's
That's
going to be
incredible.
300 feet long. It's going to be almost 150 feet wide. And it's an amazing facility. And again, you know, if you're in the Midwest, you get a chance. If you're driving through Indianapolis, look up Cataway Park, look up Cataway Archery Center, and go visit. Tony and the guys up there, they're there year round. They're
That's really
hosting not
amazing.
just us, but other events.
That's so
And if you're
great.
looking for yeah, if you're looking for a location to host an event, I'm sure Tony would love to talk to you.
There you go. That's good. That's a good plug for Kataoe Range in Archery Club. That's really cool. Amazing, man. Well, that's great. You're coming off the high. Now you're playing catch up and you're right into a History of the Bow episode.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm glad we're doing this on Tuesday and not Monday because Monday was nap time.
Yeah, right, I'm sure. That's great. Well, hopefully you caught up on your sleep and you're ready to dump some facts on us.
I'm
Where are
ready to
we
go.
where are we picking up today and what are we talking about today?
Well, what we've done so far, we started off with the Thompson brothers. Then we went into Ishi in the last episode, and we talked in depth about Ishi last episode. This last Stone Age man coming out of the mountains in Northern California, August 28th, 1911, and immediately being immersed into modern culture. Immediately going from Stone Age man to modern man overnight. Now, we were having so much fun last time that there were a couple of items that I really wish I would have shown. So I'm going to
Okay.
back up a little bit.
All right. Oh, I like this. I like
I'm going to
this.
back up a little bit
Okay.
because one of the items in my collection I want to share here. Let's get it turned
There
correctly.
you go. What is this?
This point was actually made by Ishi.
No
not a
way.
replica. This is the real deal. When people would come to see Ishi at the museum, and if you haven't listened to the episode, go back and listen to the episode. We'll talk about all
Absolutely.
of that in the episode. But when people would come to the museum, they would sit with Ishi, and Ishi would make things for them. And oftentimes people would bring in broken bottles, broken plates, broken milk bottles, like we used to get our milk delivered in glass, milk glass. And he would sit and he would nap out heads, and at the end of their conversation, he would hand the head to you as a gift.
No way.
And this particular one that I just showed was that a couple of teenage boys went to see Ishi, and he napped down a couple of heads for them and gave them as a present, as a gift for their new friendship. And I have documentation back to those original two boys that went to see Ishi. I'm the fifth person to own this point. I have documentation of each person who owned it through the years. And the point is certified. There is a way to certify items that are indeed originating from Ishi. So that was something I wish I would have shared with everybody last time. And it's something that, the significance of it, I hate to use the word value
Mm.
because I don't care about value. I really, I say all the time, my collection, my items aren't worth anything money wise. They're only worth something because of what they allow me to do. They allow me to teach someone about the history of that person. So it's not really valuable in that sense because of the way I think, but it is on the market a pretty valuable point. So I keep it in a safe deposit box. So, you know,
I love that.
if you want to come and see it, if somebody lets me know they're coming and I have time to get it, I can show you if you would come to visit.
What do you think that point is worth? I have to ask.
I'm not gonna, I'm not going to say.
You know, did you get it? Did you
I,
get it appraised?
yeah. Well, no appraisal, no, but I have had people make offers on it,
Oh, I see.
um, and I just tell them, it's not for sale. It's where in the world would I get another one?
Yeah, right.
And how in the world would I be able to teach people about Ishi and let them hold something in their hand that Ishi actually made?
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty spectacular. I also want to share a couple of items that friends down in California have sent me over the years.
Whoa, look at that.
Uh, yeah, this nutting stone was picked up on Deer Creek, Mill Creek, maybe 100 years ago, uh, 75 to 100 years ago, by someone who passed it down through their family. And the same thing, that generation three sent it to me and said, here's, put this in your collection because you share the story of Ishi, and let people hold something in their hand that came from Ishi's ancestors. Now, I'm not saying Ishi made that, he didn't, but it came from the Yahi. It came from the Yahi ancestors of Ishi. So it's pretty
That
cool.
is that's super cool.
Yeah, that's Ishi's great
Yeah,
grandfathers
there
or
you
great
go.
grandmothers.
Yeah, yeah. So that's really interesting. Did you have any additional items you wanted to share aside from the point and the tools?
Well, there's a couple of items that are out of reach right now, but
Okay.
I think that's enough just to segue to move from the Ishi story into the next chapter of the story that we're going to tell in the history of the bow. And I
Perfect.
think that next chapter that we're going to talk about today is the story of Will Compton. Now, depending on time, we may go through Will Compton, Art Young, and maybe even Saxton Pope today. So let's just play it by ear to see how far we get before
Sure.
we run out of time. So I do in the beginning, I want to credit Cliff Huntington. Is a gentleman from Louisiana who's done probably the most research on Will Compton of anybody that I know. And a lot of the things that I'm going to talk to you about today are a result of Cliff's work that he has done over the years. So it would not be right for me not to mention him up front. Thank you, Cliff, for all the work that you do to record our history.
Amazing.
Okay, so let's start with Will Compton. Why Will Compton? Okay, and I think the why Will Compton is an important part of the story. Important part of the story. So I'm going to read a little clip here that W.B. Westcott, who was the president of the National Archery Association, said about Will Compton. He said, "No one will deny the tremendous influence of Saxton Pope's writings, nor of Arthur Young's colorful exploits with the bow. Nevertheless, all who know Compton will agree that whatever field and hunting archery owes to Pope and Young, it owes in still greater measure to Will Compton, who taught both of them." And I think going even farther with that, why Will Compton? Why is he so important to our history? Glenn St. Charles, a personal friend of mine, Glenn passed away in 2010. Um, Glenn founded the Pope and Young Club in 1960. Um, Glenn and I were talking at the Cloverdale Traditional Nationals. This was probably in 1998. We were sitting around. I was president of the Indiana Bowhunters Association. It may have been a little bit earlier than that. Um, and we were hosting the Cloverdale shoot at that time. And we had Glenn come in as guest speaker. Glenn and I were sitting around, and he was talking about his desire to start a new club. And he wanted to have a new traditional only club. He founded the Pope and Young Club, which he was still very proud of. It's a great club with great people. But he wanted to found another club, a new club, that was going to be traditional archery only. And he told me that the important thing was that he wanted to get people to join this new club because they would see us having so much fun. They would see us sitting around the campfire. They would see us shooting our bows. They would listen to our stories. We were having so much fun that they just had to be a part of it. So that's the way we would recruit people into this new club. And this new club became the Compton Traditional Bowhunters. And Glenn understood the role that Will Compton had. And, you know, to the point where maybe looking back, it might have been the Pope and Compton Club.
Sure.
And so it was, you know, Compton was a very, very important person for all that he did, and the influence that he had on the people around him, who then moved on to become the people that became our pioneers.
Yeah, I think I'm probably in the majority here, where I don't have a firm understanding of how critical Chief Compton was, because he kind of gets so overshadowed with Ishii and the Pope and Young timeline. He's like smashed right in between there, and I think he just gets overshadowed by Art Young, you know,
And I think
Saxton Pope.
it's easy to understand, and it's easy to explain too, because you know Pope and Young, they were more outgoing people. They looked for ways to tell stories. They wrote magazine articles. They wrote newspaper articles. They made silent black and white movies of their hunts. They went out looking for exposure. And as a matter of fact, you'll hear us talk a little bit later. Art Young was what I consider the first showman in our sport. You know, he was physically going out and purposely trying to be a frontliner, a frontman, a headliner for the sport of archery by what he was doing. But on the contrary, Will Compton didn't do that. With all that he did, all that he knew, all the accomplishments, he was happy just shooting his bow. He was happy just teaching people how to shoot a bow, how to make a bow. He didn't look for the limelight.
Mhm.
I think that's why, to answer your question, you know, so many people haven't heard of Will Compton because Will Compton just didn't look for the limelight. He didn't need it. He was happy doing what he did. So Will Compton was, go ahead.
No, that's it. Go ahead. You're good.
Okay. Will Compton was born in Flint, Michigan, in 1863. But at a young age, about 7 years old, his family moved out to Nebraska. And in Nebraska, their family moved near a Sioux Indian reservation. And from the age of 7 years old, he was spending time with the young Sioux Indian boys on the reservation, and they were teaching him the native ways of bow and arrow. They were teaching him how to make bows in their style. They were teaching him how to hunt in their style. And because of that, all his friends, his non-native friends, started calling him Chief. So that's how he got the
No
name
way.
Chief, at a very young
That's
age.
cool.
So that was around 1870 that he moved from Flint to Norfolk, Nebraska. And it was just 7 years later. He was born in 1863. At 14 years old in 1877, he killed his first big game animal with a bow and arrow, a deer. That's pretty impressive
That's pretty impressive.
when you think of the equipment that he was using.
And the animal population.
And the animal populations, might not have been at their best. But, and I like to tie things together. And in history, 1877, he killed his first deer with a bow and arrow. 1876 was the Battle of the Little Bighorn, just to put it in context.
Yeah.
So
Oh, wow.
in Nebraska, here is Chief Compton as a 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old boy living with the Sioux, learning how to hunt with the bow and arrow. And just a few states away, Sitting Bull and Custer are fighting on the battlefield.
Wow. That's wild.
So in the next, yeah, that's pretty wild, I think, and trying to put it all into the context of what's going on in the timeline of the day, so people can understand, this is a pretty significant thing. So over the next few years, he took up to 20 deer with his bow and arrow.
No kidding.
He killed 4 antelope with his bow and arrow. He killed 2 elk. And he killed a bison with his bow and arrow.
Dude.
And he did that all before his 20th birthday.
Wow. No kidding. That's incredible.
That's incredible. Today with modern equipment and, rangefinders and pins and sights and everything, that would be impressive.
That would be impressive. You're right. That would be impressive with compounds and, I mean, you name it, dude. Like all the modern equipment.
Right. So, and I think, again, to put it in context, what else is going on at this time? There's a young man born in Fort Stockton, Texas, by the name of Saxton Pope. So just trying to tie everything together, while Compton is growing up in Nebraska, hunting with his bow, with his Sioux Indian friends, Pope is being born. So save that for the Pope part of the story.
Got it.
All right. Compton, his first part of his life was pretty busy. He married his first wife. He had 4 wives in his career life. He
In
married
his career
first
of marriage.
Yeah. It kind of like a profession. Wasn't
Yeah, it seems like it.
He married his first wife in 1884, and they moved out to Oregon. So now he's gone from Flint, Michigan to Nebraska, and now with his family, his parents, and his new wife, he's moving to Oregon. And they travel to Oregon on a wagon train. That period, he didn't just get a U-Haul and move across the country. They're moving their family, his new wife, in a wagon train from Nebraska out to Oregon. In Oregon, he begins his professional life. He's a rancher. He's a farmer. He's a logger. So he's making a living off the land. He makes a living. He doesn't make a lot of money, but he is able to support his family. He has his first child in 1886. Then he moves to Miles City, Montana. Now he leaves the life of being a logger and a rancher and a farmer, and now he's going to work in the coal mines in Miles City, Montana. He worked his way up from a coal miner to being a bookkeeper. Then he moves from being a bookkeeper to working in the local grocery store.
I'm seeing a theme with these, turn of the century people about their vocations just changing like crazy.
Well, they had to because they didn't want to just make a living; they wanted to make a life.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to make a life, you needed to grow. You needed to find a way. You couldn't just be promoted from one title to another within the same
Right.
company. So in 1893, he begins working in a grocery store. He's happy there. He's making okay money. But then in 1893 and 1894, one of the worst Great Recessions, even a Great Depression, hit our country. Um, there was a financial panic. They called it the financial panic of 1893. It was one of the most severe depressions in the U.S. history, maybe as bad as the one in the 1930s. It was caused by overbuilding in the railroads, people spending too much capital trying to move our country westward. Silver prices collapsed. Europe they were having their own problems at the time. Europe was in a bad economic crisis, and they started withdrawing gold from our gold reserves. We were a gold-based economy at the
Hmm.
time. So when Europe started calling for their gold in their deposits from our banks, it caused a lot of instability in our banking system. We had 15,000 businesses closed during the financial panic of 1893.
Wow.
1893, that's a lot of businesses percentage
Sure.
wise to those that existed. There were 500 banks collapsed across the country.
No kidding.
Unemployment reached 25%. And it lasted from 1893 to 1897. So Will is finds that he's out of a job now. Um, he moves back to Oregon.
You nailed that,
While he's
Gene, by
in
the
his
way.
what is that?
I said you nailed that history of the 1893, the depression of the 1893.
Yeah, I know. My head is filled with things that
How does it stay organized, dude? I don't understand it. I seriously don't understand it.
if I could monetize what's inside my head, I'd be
Yeah,
okay, right?
right. We'd be doing all right. That's so
But
great.
after he moves back to Oregon, his wife is diagnosed with tuberculosis. They called it at the time consumption. Um, we know she later died of tuberculosis too. So tuberculosis at that time was a pretty common illness among people, and it was not always, but many, many, many times fatal. So his first wife passes away of tuberculosis, but before she passed away, Will moved her to California so that she could be near her sister. And the hope was that being near her sister and being in the California climate would help her disease and help her cope with her tuberculosis. But it didn't, and just a year or so later, 1901, she passed away.
Hmm.
So Compton now has moved from his life in Oregon as a logger, as a rancher, as a farmer. Now he's moving into real estate while he's in California. And this is important because, back to your question, why don't we know more about Will Compton? Because his career as a real estate professional now, he's investing in properties. He's managing hotels and
Hmm.
other properties. He's making a life now, not just a living. And he has invested all of his time into his career now for so many years that he really hasn't been involved much in the bow and arrow. So how did the bow and arrow come back into Will Compton's life? When he moved to California, they moved near Los Angeles. His wife passed away. He formed an archery club in Los Angeles, and he became the first president of the Los Angeles Archery
Oh,
Club
no kidding.
in 1909. Now, this is critical too, because again, Cliff Huntington has done a lot of research on this, and there's been a lot of debate about Compton's time with the bow and arrow. Um, Compton himself said that he didn't know there was another white man in the country shooting a bow until about 1908 or 1909.
No
He
kidding.
thought he was the only one in the whole country. So this is between the time Will is in Nebraska hunting with his Sioux Indian friends. This is the first documentation that Cliff or anyone has found of Will picking up the bow and arrow again. So in 1909, he picked up the bow and arrow. He starts the Los Angeles Archery Club. He's got enough time now in his life that he can start to look for a hobby. He can start to look for a pastime and not spend every waking hour trying to make a living. Uh, this is the first time that archery comes back into Will's life. So there was an article in the Los Angeles Times, and I wrote this down and I want to read it to you. This was written in the Los Angeles Times in 1909, January 3rd, 1909, about this new archery club there in Los Angeles. It says Compton is the soul of the new club, and his experience has drawn from a life among the Indians of the plains and the mountains. He has no experience in modern archery as practiced by the National Archery Association of the U.S. The bows and arrows used by these archers are homemade affairs, patterned after those used by the Sioux. Bows are made of many woods, the best probably being dogwood and young hickory. Compton finds the best wood here to be hickory cut from the white between the brash and the heart. So here it is. He started an archery club in 1909, but he's still starting this club with equipment that is basically what he learned from the Sioux and back in Nebraska.
That's cool.
No modern archery yet. This is, I think, important to me because of all the debate about, when did Will learn modern archery, and that's where we're going to go next. So in 1910, Will's going to marry his third wife. He meets this third wife while he's shooting with the Los Angeles Archery Club, and there's a picture you can show there of Will shooting with his wife Maud.
I'll bring it up here. Maud.
And this was a picture. I think I told the story of all the items I got from the Compton estate a couple of years ago. This was one of the pictures in the estate find. But I think it's an interesting picture because it shows Will standing behind his wife as she's shooting a bow in their yard in Southern California.
Did you send that one to me?
I thought I did. Maybe I didn't.
I have a picture.
Well, we'll move on. Okay. So he's also, well, as a result of starting this archery club, he's becoming more and more interested in archery. So he begins studying the history of archery in the U.S. And he finds that there's several other clubs around the country. He wasn't aware of this. Remember, he said that until 1908, 1909, he thought he was the only white man in the country that shot a bow and arrow. But now he's doing some research and he's finding there's other clubs around the country. We know of the Wabash Mary Bowman back in Crawfordsville, Indiana. We know of the Kokomo Bowman back in Kokomo, Indiana. So he's learning he's not the only one after all. So he starts looking around and he discovers that if you want to have the finest modern bow, we're talking modern bows in the 1910, 1911, 1912 time frame, there is a man back in Oregon, in Forest Grove, Oregon, who was known as probably the finest bowyer in all of America. And that person was F.S. Barnes. I did send you some pictures of Barnes.
Yes, you did. Yeah, I have the pictures of Maud and him shooting, but for some reason they're not porting over to my computer at the moment.
Okay. Now this picture is a Barnes archery shop in Forest Grove, Oregon. And I think
look at those bows, man. You could really you could save on some shelf space with just producing D-shaped bows.
I'd love to have the Ashram. But Barnes was he was a watchmaker. He came from New York, and he was a watchmaker, and that was his career, his skill, his knowledge was about making fine watches. And he got tired of making watches. It was just not something that he enjoyed anymore. But because making a watch was a very meticulous um, thing to do, those skills, being that detailed minded, transferred over to when he started making bows.
Look at
And his
that
bows,
picture, man. What a cool
yeah,
picture, huh?
oh yeah.
He's a
And
he's a
I have a
baller.
couple of
Look at him.
Barnes, yeah, I have a couple of Barnes bows in my collection,
Do you
and
really?
you look at them and you think, well, this guy is pretty cool. He's very, very skilled with his hands.
Very cool.
So now Compton has learned of Barnes. Compton's living in California, but he's learned of Barnes, who's in Forest Grove, Illinois, and he learns that Barnes is making the finest bows that can be bought. So he goes up and spends time with Barnes, somewhere between 1910, 12, 13. He goes back and forth spending time with Barnes. Now, there's also been debate, and I think Cliff's right. Some people will say that he worked under Barnes,
Hmm.
but in the research that Cliff has done, and I tend to agree with him, he didn't work under Barnes. He studied under Barnes.
Hmm.
He didn't work for him. And Barnes would teach him not just how to make a bow, but how to get the wood from the forests around Oregon to make the bows from.
No way.
So they would go up into the mountains and they would search out the finest yew wood, and they would cut the yew wood. And you can see here Compton on the left, and that's Stanley Spencer on the right, a few years later. But they're harvesting yew logs to bring
That's so.
back and to make bows from.
What an effort, man.
What an effort. It took
What
a
an effort.
crosscut saw,
Look at that.
crosscut saw these logs down and then bring them out
That's a
to,
big tree, dude. That's a big tree.
no chainsaws, guys.
No. Oh my gosh. That's
Uh,
good. If you guys are listening to this on the audio version, the video cast versions, great as usual. Gene loaded me up with pictures that we're sharing here live on the video stream. It's so great.
okay, so Barnes is teaching Compton the art of making fine yew bows, but Barnes gets sick. Barnes dies in early 1914.
Mm.
So Compton's time with Barnes is not long. It may have been 3 years, maybe four at the most, and Barnes is now dead. Compton continues harvesting yew logs from the mountains, and in 1914, while he's up harvesting some logs, he meets a gentleman by the name of Stanley Spencer, and Stanley becomes the national champion a few years later. For the people that are history nuts like me or early history um, knowledgeable, Stanley Spencer is somebody that you would recognize the name, and Compton and Spencer become friends, and that friendship lasts for the rest of Compton's life. So Compton's harvesting these yew logs, and he's spending up to 3 months at a time up there in the mountains of Oregon harvesting logs, and he's cutting these logs up into staves and billets, and he's sending them over to Europe.
Hmm.
The demand for our northwestern yew wood is very high.
No kidding.
Europe has two reasons. Europe has exhausted much of the supply of their own yew wood over the centuries, but also they're finding that our yew wood, because of the slow growth and the Pacific Northwest yew, it was probably better yew wood than they were getting in Europe.
Hmm.
So there was a really, really high demand for the logs that Compton was cutting. And he was spending up to 3 months at a time up there cutting logs. And he was he reportedly, Spencer said that he cut over 1,000 yew logs to be sent over
Oh
to
my
Scotland.
gosh.
So yeah, not that he was just picking up a few logs here and there.
I wonder what
So
that
in 19,
wonder what that logistics looked like back there at the turn of the century. Could you
can
think
you
about
imagine
that?
can you imagine using that crosscut saw and cutting 1,000 logs and
Yeah,
then
and then figuring out the route, like how do I get it from here
yeah,
to Europe?
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
It's not like
Well,
UPS
then,
was
you
around.
can't just cut the log. You got to split the log. You got to
Yeah.
dry the log. So
Wow.
logistically, that was quite an undertaking.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Um, now Compton, at around this time, learns of the story of Ishi. Um, so Compton travels to San Francisco to meet this last Stone Age wild Indian
Hmm.
at the Museum of Anthropology there in San Francisco. And upon his looking over at my bird dog puppy again. So when he gets to San Francisco to meet Ishi, he also meets Dr. Pope. And those two, Pope and Compton, spend many, many hours talking about Ishi, meeting with Ishi. And Pope really becomes very interested in Compton's knowledge of modern archery.
Hmm.
Now, when we get into the Pope story, we'll talk more about this, but Pope's knowledge of archery up until this point when he meets Compton has been come from two places. Pope also grew up in what we would call the Wild West in Texas. Pope was spending time with the local natives in Texas as a young boy, learning archery from them. But then he goes off to other military bases with his father, leaves the archery behind, and doesn't get reintroduced to archery until Ishi comes into his life in 1911.
Hmm.
So Pope spends several years from 1911 until Ishi passes away in 1916 learning Yahi archery, Yahi bows, Yahi hunting, and now here comes Compton, who has learned modern archery from Barnes. And Pope becomes very interested in modern archery, and Pope wants to know how to make the bows that Compton is shooting. And we see some of the bows here. These are Compton's bows. This is Compton's arrows and quiver.
What does he
Uh,
have? What does he have embedded in the side plate there?
these Mother of Pearl was his most common
Okay.
side plate. Um, and you can, the penthouse, pentagon shape um, that he had there was pretty typical of a Compton bow.
Hmm.
The Compton bows most often are also stamped with with a stamp, not written, stamped Compton. Not all the time, but most often. He made bows for himself and for his friends, but he also made bows to sell. And my theory is that many of the bows that he made to sell, he'd stamp his name in. And many of the bows that he made for himself, he didn't stamp.
Hmm.
But you can look at a Compton bow, you can see the grips there, very, very standardized the way he made his grips. You can look at a Compton bow, the grip, the way it's made, the horn knocks, and that's a Compton bow.
Yeah, and I could see the stamps up here above the grips on these
Yeah.
bows here in this picture. Yeah, it's really cool.
So Pope now with Compton, they're spending a lot of time talking about modern bows, their construction, modern archery, and now Pope Young and Pope and Compton and Ishi are all friends, friends of the bow, brothers of the bow. Now I'm going to read another section here that Pope himself wrote in 1923, and you can find it in the book Hunting with the Bow and Arrow. He says, "When Ishi started shooting with me, one bowman after another appeared on the scene to join us. Among the first came Will Compton, a man of mature years and many experiences. When he came to us, he was already a seasoned archer." So Pope was being taught by Will Compton.
Hmm.
And I go back to, what we said in the very first minutes of this episode, why Compton? Because Compton is the man who taught Saxton Pope modern archery,
Hmm.
modern equipment. Without Compton, Pope would have maybe continued with the Yahi style of archery, but it was Compton who brought him into the modern age. Now let's move on into Compton's life a little farther. So remember, he's living in California. Um, there is the Pan Pacific Exhibition in San Francisco in 1915. At the Pan Pacific Exhibition, there is a Japanese archery exhibit. Compton wants to go see the Japanese bows and arrows, and he does. And while he's there admiring the Japanese archery exhibit, a young man, tall, very athletic looking, stands next to Compton. Compton acknowledges the man, holds his hand out to shake the man's hand and introduces himself as Will Compton. The tall, athletic man reaches back, shakes his hand, and says, "Hello, my name is Art Young."
Hmm.
So the friendship between Compton and Art started there at that Japanese archery exhibit in 1915. Compton invites Art Young to come back to San Francisco at the university to meet Pope and to meet Ishii. So now we have Compton, we have Ishii, we have Pope, and we have Young. This is Pope on the left, Young in the middle, Compton on the right.
Three amigos. What a great picture.
Now, this is this is the maybe the pinnacle of our sports history when those four are together.
Hmm.
But it only lasts about 2 years because, as we know, Ishii gets tuberculosis and dies in March of 1916. But the time they spent together in those short year and a half um, was what really gave the foundation to our sport.
Hmm. It's incredible.
Ishii passes in 1916. Pope, Young, and Compton continue with their archery and bow hunting adventures. Pope wrote his first article about hunting with the bow and arrow in 1917, and he wrote a lot of articles and sent them off to magazines and newspapers. But the first one he did was in 1917, and he attended many sports shows. They together would go to sports shows. They would teach archery at schools and universities in the area. And then they spent a lot of time hunting with the bow and arrow. Now you can see that picture you were just showing there,
Oh, yeah.
Compton, and the way he dressed.
Yeah. It is.
And, it's unusual by
It is
today's
unusual.
standards,
Yeah.
but they were the spirit of our sport was something they took seriously.
Sure.
The romance of the bow and arrow. So they would dress, not just Compton, but many others. The Chet Stevenson and many of the guys in the Northwest would all dress in, we might call them costumes, as a part of their archery exhibition.
Hmm.
Um,
Do you wear that at Did you wear that at Compton this past weekend? Something like
I,
that.
I had a pair of green tights like that, but my wife convinced me not to.
She made you wear them under the jeans. Sure, honey, you can wear those as long as they're under your jeans.
Yeah, we won't be married again much
Yeah,
longer
right.
if you start wearing clothes like that.
Exactly. No wonder he had four wives.
Yeah. Now, there's another picture I sent you. I'd like you to show now too.
Okay,
That
which one?
the Compton bow with the she stamped on it.
Okay, yep. There you
Okay,
go.
there's this one. There's another one of the bow by itself.
Oh, there is. Okay.
Here is, a picture on the left, the bow on the left here. You can see it, but I sent another picture of just the bow by itself. But you can see this was Compton's personal bow.
Hmm.
And when I got the estate a couple of years ago, this was to me the reason I really wanted that estate was this bow. You can see above the grip, you can see WJC, Will J. Compton. This was his personal bow. You can see the handwriting. The WJC is kind of clubby,
Hmm.
but then you see below the riser, below the grip, you see Ishii. You see the word Ishii, and you see the napped arrowhead drawn. Now, I don't have this story. This is my story, and like I say, it's my story. I can tell it the way I want to tell it.
This is my story.
But this is obviously Compton's personal bow,
Hmm.
and the WJC at the top is different handwriting than the Ishii on the bottom. The Ishii on the bottom and the napped arrowhead drawn on it are in pretty steady hand. And Pope was a surgeon. He had a very steady hand. So my story is that this is Compton's bow, unquestionably. They are sitting around after Ishi has passed. They may be sitting around a campfire somewhere on one of their hunts, and Pope looks over at Compton and says, "Hand me your bow." And Compton puts the Ishi and the arrowhead on there in remembrance of their
Hmm.
friend who's passed. But that particular bow story, if it could tell the story,
Yeah.
it would be so amazing to hear it. But it's in my estimation, that story has to be similar to the one I've just told.
It's
Uh,
funny because like as you were telling that story, I kind of went into a daydream of like you having the opportunity to hand this bow to Chief Compton and just see his reaction and then hear the story from him. Like if he
yeah,
got that in his hand, going, "Oh, I remember this bow," and then like just let him go off the chains, telling you stories about like when he
yeah.
made it and like what he did with it. That'd be so cool.
But you remember, we talked in I think the first episode we did. You were commenting about my memory, but my memory, I told you, is a visual memory.
Hmm.
I remember things not by dates and events. I remember things visually. So if I can, in my mind, picture Compton sitting around the campfire with Pope and Young, and I can picture the sparks coming out of the fire, I can picture the smoke above the fire. I can picture their faces being lit by the firelight. I can picture Pope reaching over to Compton and saying, "Hand me your bow," and this happening. Um, and I think because because my memory is not of facts, my memory is not of dates and things. It's a picture. My memory is of experiences,
Hmm.
and all of us, some of the best memories we've got are experiential, and I think that's why my mind works the way it does. That's why I remember things, is because I put it into an experience, not just a date and a
Yeah,
time.
it's fascinating. That's so cool. So
So
these bows, like I could see you have bows in your cabinets and your display boxes and everything. Do they still have a smell to them? Like if you were to open
some of
those
them do.
boxes up,
Yeah,
what do they
yeah.
smell like?
Well, it's not a musty smell.
Hmm.
It's an antique smell. If you walk into an antique store, you'll get smells. You'll get the patina, the look, the color, the patina, but there's also the smell of age.
Hmm.
Uh, when I first got these things, the bows and the quiver and the arrows, they had that smell of having been somewhere a long, long time. So they had what I would call an antique smell.
Hmm.
Um, it's not a musty smell. It's not a smell that is unpleasant. It's a smell of story. It's a smell
Smell of
of I've
heritage.
been there. Heritage. Good,
Yeah.
good word. So these are the items I got out of that estate sale.
Wow.
Uh, they speak to me. I get kind of weird about that, but they do speak to me, and they try to tell me their story, and I try to listen.
Oh, I love that. That's amazing. So
So
this all came out of one collection.
this all came out of one collection. Um, I'll tell the story again.
Yeah.
Compton's last wife, she was the fourth wife. She was she owned a hotel in around San Francisco in another town in California, and Compton owned a hotel in San Francisco. So they both owned a hotel. And they get married, and Compton says, "Well, I'll just move to where you are, and we'll just run your hotel." Um, she passes away in 1932, and Compton, now a widower for the last time, moves in with a friend of his. And from 1932 until he passes away in 1938, he lives in this friend's house, and he and Stanley Spencer are making and trying to sell archery equipment. They're trying to start an archery business. Um, so when he passes in 1938, he passed very unexpectedly, had a heart attack, and this equipment's in the room where he had lived. When the gentleman who I got the estate from, when it was his grandfather that Compton lived with, and when his grandfather passed, his father got the bows and the arrows and the quivers and the letters. And then when his father then handed it down to him, he has it for several years and then decides that, I want to try to find a place where people can enjoy this.
Is this the
Thank
fellow
God for
from
people like
Connecticut?
that. He was from Connecticut of all
Okay, yeah, yeah.
places.
I remember this
Yeah.
story.
So, thank God for people that appreciate, and didn't just take it to the dump.
Sure.
He knew the baseline of the story. He didn't know the significance of the story, but he knew the baseline of the story. Uh, and so he called and he wanted this stuff to go to someone that could share it and display it and share it with people. And so that's why he called me and asked me if I was interested in it. Um, so it ends up now, I can, when I set my collection up around different places, these bows and the Ishi bow and Compton's arrows and Compton the letters that Pope and Young wrote Compton. And I'll share those with you too.
Oh,
I think
yes.
these are very interesting. Um,
For those of you guys listening, the video version is awesome. We're looking into Gene's museum, if you will, and he's sharing these letters that he has in a
I
binder.
know it's impossible
Yeah, it's
to
going to be
read them
tough.
on the camera, but there's a couple of dozen letters here that Pope
Wow.
and Young both wrote to Compton over the years, and they're telling him how much they appreciate his friendship. They're asking him to go on hunts. Um, they're understanding that his situation, and he's older. He's in the real estate profession. He doesn't have the time uh, to go with them on many of their hunts. But they're telling him about their hunts, and they're saying, "We wish you could have gone. We had such a great time. It would have been so much better if you had gone." And there's two letters in here. When Art and Saxton go on the trip to Africa in 1925, they took a steamship from New York City over to Africa for their hunts. And on the steamship, because it takes a long time back in that day, 1925, to get from New York to Africa,
Yeah,
on a
how long do
steamship,
you think that travel was?
I really don't know, but it had to be a few weeks. I don't know,
You'd think,
a
right?
couple of weeks. I don't know.
Hmm.
But
That'd be crazy.
during the time, to pass the time, the ship had athletic events on board, and they would have badminton matches, they would have tennis matches, they would have you know track meets, short dashes, and things like this. And there's an itinerary of all the
No way.
events of the yeah. So this, again, you can't see it,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
this shows all of the athletic events on there, and the winner next to that event, Art Young, Art Young, Art Young, Art Young, Art Young.
No kidding.
He
That's so
was such
great.
a beast. He
Yeah.
was a beast.
Yeah, I mean, just look
And
at him
then,
in this picture. I mean, he's just a strapping
yeah,
dude, you know?
yeah. So, all right. So, if you ever get a chance, to see those letters and to read those letters, they're pretty special.
Yeah, those are
Uh,
cool.
Compton and Saxton and Art got permission to hunt with their bow and arrows in Yellowstone Park in 1920, and the permission was special permission so they could go harvest grizzly bears to send back to the museums for specimens to be exhibited in the museums. So they got special dispensation to hunt grizzly bears in Yellowstone Park in 1920. Um, so Pope and Young ended up going, but Compton had to back out because of an illness in the family.
Mm.
But this is just how close they were as the three hunters, bow hunters, after Ishi died, and they planned many hunts. They went off on from rabbits to deer to bear, um, and when you think about the three of them, they come from very different backgrounds. Pope is a surgeon. He's probably one of the best surgeons in the country at the time. Money comes pretty easy to Pope. And you know what? He came from a family that was not, um, they were already pretty well to do. And then he, as a surgeon, is doing pretty well himself. Compton has made a fair amount of money in real estate. So he's not a poor man. He can do whatever he wants whenever he wants. But Young's a newspaper man. He's not
Hmm.
doing as financially as well as the others. So when they go on these hunts, it's really easy for Pope and Compton to pick up and say, "Let's go." But Young, he has to, can I afford? Yeah, I really can't afford to go, but I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to quit my job and I'm going to go.
He has his priorities right.
So yeah, his solution was, I can't afford to take off work, but I can quit work and I can just go.
That's so
So he's
great.
really dedicated. He's really
Yeah,
dedicated to the sport.
that's awesome.
Um, yeah, and Compton now is getting to the age and the point in his family life where his kids are a priority, and he's not as willing to just pick up and go on these adventure hunts that the other two are doing. So, in the late teens, Compton starts just focusing and concentrating on building archery and the sport of bow hunting around the area of California. And that's his focus. And that's another reason, when you say I've never, a lot of people, I hadn't heard of Compton until the Compton Bow Hunters took his name. Well, he purposely focused on building the sport, growing the sport, training people in the California area. Um, he was really, many people would call the godfather of Western archery,
Hmm.
Western bow hunting. And people from all over came to Compton's house to learn about the sport. Stanley Spencer, who we saw in the picture earlier of him cutting the logs with Compton, um, Spencer and Compton in 1926 traveled from California all the way to the NAA tournament in Pennsylvania, the national tournament in Pennsylvania. And they drove nonstop for 9 days from
No way.
California to Pennsylvania.
9 days. Holy
9
crap.
days in in a car. Can you imagine a 1926
Dude,
automobile
seriously. Talk about saddle soreness. Oh my gosh.
and driving nonstop from California to Pennsylvania? They get there 24 hours before the start of the tournament. They don't have time to practice. They get a little bit of shut eye, and Spencer goes out and wins the tournament.
No way.
Spencer was one of Compton's pupils. So Compton taught Spencer. Compton and Spencer drive 9 days. Spencer wins the tournament.
All right, guys, I'm heading to Africa here in a few weeks, and I'm here at my home club putting the finishing touches on my tune, getting ready for this trip, and my confidence is at an all-time high. Came here to the club, and I'm following Cody Greenwood's process for tuning that you see in Precision Tuning for the Die-Hard Bow Hunter, our online course. It's an absolute masterclass on tuning traditional bows for the Die-Hard Bow Hunter. And I'm telling you what, I'm just always blown away at how fast after taking that course I can achieve what you're looking at here on this paper. These are bullet holes at 3 feet, 6 feet, and 12 feet away from the front of my bow. And here's a quick montage of me shooting these arrows uncut. And it's unbelievable that you can achieve this level of tune, getting this arrow to recover within 3 feet of the bow. It's unbelievable. My confidence has never been higher. I'm ready to go. I'm running my Safari Tough old schools. I landed on a 30-inch arrow, 400 spine with 250 grains up front with the standard components, and my confidence has never been higher. Go check out that online course at thepusharchery.com. Also, if you're looking for some new arrows to try, look no further than safaritough.com. You can use discount code THEPUSH at checkout for 15% off your entire cart value. I cannot wait to run some arrows through some African critters in a few weeks. All right, guys, Check out the online course, Precision Tuning for the diehard bow hunter. You won't regret it.
And when they come back, now they've got some notoriety. Compton and Spencer now have a name on the tournament trail. They're known as having some of the finest equipment you can get. So they decide now that they want to go into the archery business. This is around 1928. So they start making bows together, and they start selling bows, and they start selling archery equipment. They start selling some arrows, and they start selling maybe some leather goods out of Compton's house. And that's the items that I got from that estate sale was what was in their inventory when they were making and selling archery equipment. Now, what's also cool, if you ever get a chance to look at the bows, you can see the progression. You can see the earliest bows are pretty typical standard D-section English-style U-bows with horn knocks. But then you can see a transition from the D-section to a flatter, and they're starting to move toward more of an American flat bow, which was, many bowyers at that time were learning that the flat bows were maybe a little more efficient and maybe a little more durable than the D-section were. And so you can see Compton. I've got one of Compton's bows that is transitioning to a flat bow. Obviously, he's making those for the market. He's starting to understand what the market is wanting, and he's starting to adjust the bows that he's making to the bows that people are wanting to buy.
Fascinating.
So now, it didn't last long. Again, his wife passes in 1932. That probably took a lot of fire out of him, and he starts to slow down, and he just now focuses just on speaking engagements, and he has his final hunt on Catalina Island in 1934. Compton passes from a sudden heart attack in May of 1936. So now we have Ishii is dead, Pope is dead. We'll talk more about Pope later. Young is the only survivor. Compton is dead. Young is the only survivor. So we'll move into the Art Young story now. Of the four, Art Young lives the longest. He doesn't pass until 1938. Art is who I consider, and I think many people consider, to be the first archery showman. He's the first bow hunter who's going to go out and I'm not just going to sell some equipment. I'm not going to just go out and make a name for myself on the tournament trail. I'm going to try to make a living from my experiences. So he becomes a true showman. He goes up to Alaska and he films his hunt in Alaska for grizzly bear, brown bear. He films his hunt for moose.
That's so
and he
cool,
puts
isn't it? The first content creator.
You see, the first content creator. And
welcome back to my channel, guys. I'm up here in Alaska. Smash the subscribe button.
He's making this movie. It's 1918, and it's a black and white movie. 1920. Anyhow, it's a black and white silent movie. But he makes this movie and he calls it Alaskan Adventures. And he comes back and he starts showing his movie all across the country. And while he's showing the movie at these different movie theaters across the country, because it's a silent movie, black and white silent movie, he attends the the showings in the theaters, and he sits on the stage and he narrates.
No way.
And he tells people the stories firsthand, first person. He's sitting there telling people the story as the movie is playing.
Cool.
And jumping ahead a little bit, just to whet people's appetite for a little more discussion later in the story of Fred Bear. In 1928, he's showing his movie at the Adams Theater in Detroit, Michigan, and in the audience is a 26-year-old man who's got an interest in archery, and that man's name was Fred Bear. Fred Bear meets Art Young after the showing. Art Young comes back to Fred's house, and they start making some equipments in Fred's basement. And this is the fire that was lit under Fred Bear, was Art Young showing that movie in the Adams Theater there, and that's the beginning of the Fred Bear story. Now you look at the picture. Fred Bear was a big guy. He wasn't he wasn't muscular as such, but he was a fairly tall man. He's bigger than me. Look at the picture of Fred there on the right, standing next to Art. Now Art's uphill a little bit.
Yeah,
but,
right.
And look at the build.
Yeah, the build's
Art.
completely different. What a beast.
Yeah, Art Young was a beast.
And he looks small compared to Saxton Pope.
Well, Pope's the smallest of the lot.
Hold on. Let me go back to that one picture here. This one right here.
Yeah.
Pope's
Pope
on
is
the left. Art Young's in the middle.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Look at Fred's face.
Okay.
It's so recognizable.
Fred never changed. That was
He did. He did. I was just thinking the same thing. He never changed.
You look at pictures of Fred when he was a young man, even as a boy. You look at pictures of Fred when he was 8, 9, 10 years old, and you look at it and you say, that's Fred Bear. That's Fred.
Yeah.
And you look at Fred in 1988, just before he passed, and look at the pictures of him in 1908 when he's a boy, and it's the same dude.
Same dude.
You can tell it's the same dude.
It's those signature like high-rise dimples like across his cheek. You see it and you're like, yep, that's Fred.
And the ears.
The ears. Yeah.
Okay, so again so we went through why Will Compton. Now we're going to do why Art Young, and I just told why Art Young. Art Young was the first showman. Art Young was the man who attracted Fred Bear into the sport. Art Young was critically important to the history of the bow. So now let's tell the Art Young story. Art was born in 1883 in California. He was the third of 5 children in the family. His father was a Union Army veteran. He became a school teacher after the war. Young was in high school when his father unexpectedly passed away. And Art had moved off to go to high school, and Art had to quit school and come back and help run the family business. But while doing that, while he was back running the family business, that area around where he lived had a lot of game. And that allowed Art and his brothers to spend a lot of time hunting and fishing and camping during his young years. But Art was not a bow hunter. Art was a natural with firearms. He was a master with rifle and pistol. He was a top competitor, and he started competition shooting rifle and pistol as a young man. And eventually he became a top competitor in San Francisco with the firearms. Now, these firearms that you were showing there, the Colt Single Action Army, the Colt Double Action, that's the Colt Single Action Army, that's the Colt Double Action, and then the Winchester Model 52 rifle, 22 caliber rifle that I'm holding there. We're all in the Pope and Young Museum up in Chatfield, Minnesota, until they closed the museum. The firearms are all on loan from Chuck Young, who's Art's grandson. And Chuck is still living. He's 90 years old. I just talked to him yesterday.
No kidding.
He lives out in Pennsylvania. So these firearms are all on loan from Chuck to the Pope and Young Museum. But Art's a master competitor with firearms. He's also a master musician. He was a violin. What do they call him? Violin. The words on the tip of my tongue here. But he was a master with a violin. And he took his violin along with him on many of their hunts and camping trips. And he cut his violin down. You look at this violin in the picture here. That's his violin, and he called it katydid. And he cut katydid down so that he could it was more packable. You know,
Hmm.
like turning a bows, from a longbow to a three-piece bow. He did the same thing
With his
with
musical
his
instruments.
musical instruments. Uh, and Art, he's again a natural. He was a gifted man. He was a gifted athlete. He was a very smart man, very good musician. So that's, musicians are generally pretty intelligent people. Um, he was also an excellent swimmer, and he was probably the best. Look at the physique of Art in this picture here, and he was in the 220 and the 440 and the 880 events. It is said that he was unbeaten during his career.
No kidding.
He was training for the Olympics, and the only thing that probably kept him from being in the Olympics was World War One starting, and the Olympics were canceled.
Hmm.
But that's how good he was. So he was just a natural athlete. So once he got the family business in order, he moved back to San Francisco and he began a career as a newspaperman. And he worked for the San Francisco Call newspaper for about 14 years. But he wasn't making, as I said, he wasn't making a lot of money, but it was a job, and it allowed him to have some hunts locally. Um, he's still not into the bow and arrow. He's still a rifle and pistol shooter. That all changed in 1915 when Art attended the Pan Pacific exhibition there in San Francisco that we talked about when we were talking about Will Compton. In the Japanese archery exhibit, he meets Will Compton. We've already told that story. The two talk about bows and arrows, and Will Compton invites Art to come back to San Francisco, the University of California, there to meet Dr. Pope and Ishii. And the four become very close friends. Ishii teaches Yahi archery, and it's Compton teaching both Pope and Young modern archery. There was another gentleman in the area his name was Cassius Stiles, and I'm going to read something Cassius said about the three. Art was the best shot of the group, and not because of strength, but because he was not too lazy to practice with simple persistence. He was a violinist with enough real talent to perform recitals with the same hand he gripped heavy shooting bows. His shooting was as artistic as a recital and almost as thrilling. So Art was a pretty talented man with a bow and arrow. He was the best shot of the group. Uh, Under Compton's instruction, both Pope and Young picked up the bow and arrow, and both Pope and Young started making bows and arrows. Compton was teaching them to make bows and arrows, the same as Barnes had taught him how to make bows and arrows. And they used these U-wood bows on their earliest hunts. But then you see Art later, around 1926 or so, he learns of Osage as a bow wood, and he starts making bows from Osage rather than U-wood. And he got his Osage from a guy down in Texas by the name of E.F. Pope. No relation to Saxton Pope, but E.F. Pope is still known as probably the Osage King
Hmm.
of the early days. So um, Art becomes now he's hunting with Pope, he's hunting with Compton, but he's also doing some solo hunts himself. In 1922, 1923 is when he goes to Alaska, and he hunts the big game up there with a bow and arrow. He takes a cameraman, and neither of them took a rifle for a backup. So they're hunting Alaskan brown bear, and they're hunting moose with just the bow and arrow and no backups. Um, Young also goes to an area called the Wood River up north of Fairbanks, and he kills a Dall sheep on the Wood River. And this is pretty cool because that's the Dall sheep he took on the Wood River.
Wow.
This is pretty cool because when I was doing some research on Glen St. Charles, And if you read Glenn's book, Bows on the Little Delta, he tells the story of when he is flying around, just he and the pilot, doing some scouting from the air, and the pilot says, "This area here is the Little Delta. This area over here is the Wood River." And Glenn remembers, wait, the Wood River. This is where Art took his Dall sheep in 1923. So the Wood River, where he is hunting and kills, where Art is hunting and kills this Dall sheep, is pretty close to the
No
area
way.
of Glenn ended up hunting 50 years later. It's 30 something years later, uh, and comes to be known as the Little Delta hunts.
So cool.
Yeah.
So cool.
So
I'm
Art
so
does
glad you're in our community, Gene.
Art, Art does the movie. Art goes around the country with the movie in the theaters, and Art tells of his development. Now remember that he didn't shoot a bow and arrow until he met Compton. He didn't know anything about bows and arrows until he met Compton. So Art is telling, when he's telling his stories at the movie theaters, he's telling his stories of his development as a bow hunter. And he's telling how many people were skeptical of the bow and arrow, which was true even when I was growing up. A lot of people were skeptical of the bow and arrow. Even in fish and game departments, they didn't understand the bow and arrow being a lethal weapon to hunt big game. Even in my time, in Glenn St. Charles's time, that's one of the reasons Glenn started the Pope and Young Club, was to document all the animals that were being killed around the country with a bow and arrow. Not just deer, but bears and moose and big game, dangerous game were being killed with a bow and arrow, so that he could go into fish and game agencies and use that documentation to get them to open up archery seasons in their states. Well, Art was facing that same skepticism back when he is picking up the bow and arrow. So, from Art's own words here, I'm going to do a little reading again. He said, "At first we hunted squirrels and rabbits, and the doubters told us that we couldn't kill deer. We killed deer, and they said we couldn't kill bears. And right straight through the list we went until we had killed every species of American game fairly, including the grizzly and the brown bears of Alaska."
That's so
I
cool.
think that's the
Yeah.
development, the evolution of Art as a bow hunter.
Like it's
Um,
so interesting to think about the feat of doing that now, right? You look at it and it's just like if somebody would go around and does tons of travel hunting and they're super successful, you're just like, wow, that's so amazing. Like I can't like how did you do that? How did you find the time, the drive, the gumption to like go and travel the world? But to do it back then in the early 1900s is mind blowing. It's mind blowing.
when you're maybe the first
In the
to ever do that.
first, in the first,
No one
right?
has seen no one has seen an Alaskan brown bear shot with an arrow. No one has seen an Alaskan moose shot with an arrow. Well, what's going to happen?
Right.
I don't have a rifle. I
Yeah,
don't have a
what's
rifle to
gonna
back me
happen?
up. What's going to
Yeah.
happen now? And when he did, and you can watch this in the movie Alaskan Adventures, that you show the still picture there of
Mhm.
Art shooting with the three bears in the background. Um, when Art shot that center bear, that the bear standing there, there's another bear off to the right that actually charged him. Uh, and after he shot, the bear charges him, and then the bear sees that one he shot, fall and basically die. The bear that was charging him veered off away from Art. So wow, a close call.
Yeah.
But I'm probably the first guy to ever done this. I wonder what's going to happen.
Yeah. Wonder what happens when you
Yeah.
shoot a bear
Uh,
with a really sharp object and he still has a minute to live. Wonder what
yeah, and
happens.
he's got a couple of friends watching me do this, and
Yeah.
his friends, I wonder what they're going to do. So now he's gone through the list of all the American big game, and now he's sitting around, and they have a friend. This friend's name is Stuart Edward White, and Stuart Edward White was an author. Pope was an author, had written some books. White had written some books. White says, what about Africa? What about African lions? So in 1924, they said, yeah, let's do that. Let's go to Africa and let's hunt African lions and African big game with a bow and arrow. So this is the beginning now of their Alaskan or their African adventure. So now, after several months of planning, they leave in March of 1925. They leave from New York City and they're going to Kenya. That's their first destination is to Kenya. That's where they land port into Africa and Kenya. And it says the books now say that it was about a month voyage to get to Kenya. Kenya. Um, I like the story that is told before they leave. There is a big gala event. They hold a big gala event in New York City celebrating their departure and good luck on the hunt. And in this gala event are many dignitaries from around the country, the city, and they come to wish Pope and Young well on their hunt. And in the gala, attending the gala for their hunt, is Theodore Roosevelt and his son Kermit.
No
And
way.
they're getting ready. They're going to be leaving in a few days for their own hunt to India. So this is a big deal.
Yeah.
It's not just, let's hey, I'll meet you at the airport tomorrow morning and let's fly off to Africa and let's go
Right.
shoot some big game. I mean, they have a big going away party with all the famous dignitaries coming to their going away party, including Theodore Roosevelt.
Wow.
So now they're in Africa. Um, this is late 1925. They're hunting big game now. The first time anybody's hunted big game in Africa with a bow and arrow. That's Art with one of the lions that he killed. They take 7 lions with their longbows.
Wow. No kidding.
7 lions with the longbows, but
Wow.
they shot several more. But the others had to be finished with a rifle. But
Mm,
they finished 7 lions with the bow and arrow.
no kidding.
Now, there was one lion. Art and Saxton are both sitting in the blind. It's really just think of a brush blind. They're sitting around and they're hunting at night, and a big male lion comes in, and he's 12 yards away. Art and Saxton look at each other, non-verbally communicate to each other. We're going to draw, and on command, which is probably just a nod or something, non-verbal.
Now.
Yeah, they loose their arrow. They loose their arrow at this huge male lion that's just 12 yards away. Arch Young strikes the lion. Saxton totally misses the lion. I can imagine why.
Been
um,
there, done
and,
that.
and the lion roars, turns toward them, roars a blood-curdling roar, and then runs the other direction. He looks to see what had hit him. And if you read the book, the way they describe it, the lion looks their way from where the arrow came, lets out a blood-curdling roar, and he can't see what caused what just happened to him. So that saved them. He didn't run at them, he ran away from them because he didn't see what happened. The lion ran about 79 paces and fell dead.
Hmm.
Um, Now, the book Adventurous Bowman, do you have the copy? Do you
Let
have
me
the
see
picture
here.
of the book Adventurous Bowman?
Mm.
If not, I'll hold it up.
Yeah, I don't think I do. Oh, what? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Got it.
Okay. Yeah. So when they come back, Pope writes this book, The Adventurous Bowman. Now, you also have a picture of Stuart Edward White's book, Lions in the Path. Okay. Isn't that a beautiful cover?
That's such a cool book. Yeah.
That's a cool book. Um, both of these books are written after they come back from their hunts. Um, they're hunting the same, they're on the same safari. They're spending time in the same camps. Pope is a bow hunter White is hunting with the bow and arrow, but he's more a rifle hunter, hunting with the bow and arrow. And you read the two books, and it's the same hunt, same camps, same stories, but the perspectives are different.
Mm.
And so White comes back and writes the story, and he's a little negative about some of the things that didn't go right.
Oh, really?
And yeah, so Pope and Young, they're a little hurt by that.
It's the last time we invite Stuart on a hunt with us.
Well, and, back to the letters that I got in the
Yeah.
Compton estate. That's actually said in the letters.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah,
Like, screw that guy.
the post hunt letters back to White from I think it was Pope writing back to Compton. Say that White guy, it didn't work out quite like we thought it was going to work out.
That's so funny.
Maybe that friendship wasn't as tight after
Yeah,
they
right.
came back. But those two books, The Adventurous Bowman is a great book. It's on my list of the top 10 bow hunting books of all time. There were only one edition of this printed in 1926, so that edition there as an original copy,
Mhm.
especially with dust cover like that, not easy to find. Not many dust covers like that around. And not many of the books can be found. They're not cheap. Maybe a couple $100, 250 or somewhere in there if you do find one. But they are reprints. You can get reprints of that book if you want to read The Adventurous Bowman by Pope. You can get the reprints fairly inexpensively, maybe $20, $25.
Yeah, they're not very expensive.
Yeah, and it's in the Darrydale series there that Glenn St. Charles put out a
Mm.
few years ago too. That's one of the 29 titles that's in the Darrydale series as well. Now, the Lions in the Path book that was written by White, also in 1926.
Hmm.
Um, that dust cover, I don't know that I've ever seen another one with dust cover on it. That's an original dust cover, not a copy. Uh, I made the mistake a few years ago of making a copy of that dust cover for somebody, and then they made copies of copies of copies
Oh,
and
no
started.
kidding. That's cool. Yeah, you don't even
I
see
didn't.
that. That doesn't even pop up when you search it.
Yeah,
Like there's one image of it over here, but everyone else is like the tree
yeah. But you
dust
can
cover.
get the reprints. Again, that book, the original of that book, is not cheap. It's not easy to find, but there's a lot of reprints of that book. So if you'd like to read the two, read them back to back.
Yeah, cool.
Read the Bowhunters, the Pope copy. You read the Pope written one, and then read the White written one. And it's interesting to get the different perspectives from the different authors.
Yeah.
Um, so now we're out of Africa. Art's still, oh, let's back up a little bit. Not not long. It's just a matter of a few weeks, a couple of months after they get back from Africa, and the Pope publishes the book Adventurous Bowman. Pope dies. Pope dies in 1926. So that back to that Adventurous Bowman book, I've got one that's autographed by Pope, and that had to be within just a couple of weeks of Pope dying that he wrote his autograph in that book because that
No
book
kidding.
just came out,
Wow.
and Pope dies. Okay, so now Pope's dead, Ishi's dead. Compton is spending his life managing his real estate business, working, not working, but, being with his family. He's not interested in the adventure hunts like the other guys are. Um, Art continues his solo hunting. So Art, this is one of the books that is much less well known. Art goes to Greenland in 1926 with a young man, a teenage boy by the name of George Putnam. And this boy is the heir to the Putnam publishing empire.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So, and that's who published Pope's book was the Putnam family. So they travel on a boat called the Morrissey. It's a ship. It's not a boat, and they're going around Greenland. And Art is hunting with a bow and arrow, and young um, David Putnam. I said George. David Putnam, young David Putnam, is hunting with Art, and Art kills a walrus and he kills a polar bear. Now, the walrus, he gets in a small skiff and he goes off the Morrissey into the skiff, goes out into the water and shoots this walrus who's swimming, which today would not be
Hmm.
probably acceptable, but in 1926, it, it wasn't looked down on in 1926. Uh, so Art shoots this walrus from the skiff, and after hitting the walrus is not very happy. And the walrus turns around and with his long tusks swipes at the skiff, buries his tusk into the bow of the skiff, barely missing, barely missing Art's legs, uh, then turns and swats the skiff and dies. So, a near-death experience for Art there. Uh, and he shoots the grizzly bear, or the polar bear as well, with the bow and arrow. Again, the polar bear was swimming, which today would disqualify it, be illegal. But in 1926, it wasn't. And that is in a book that not many people know about, called David Goes to Greenland,
Hmm.
1926. Now
Do you
you
have a
can get
copy of
that book.
that?
Yeah, I don't have it here out of my
Sure.
bookcase, but that book is fairly easily found out on eBay or in some of the book sites like eBooks, and it's not all that expensive because it's not that well known.
Is this the book here?
Yep, that looks like the book. What's the price on the one you're looking at there?
Let's see here. 199. Or that's
199?
no. $1.99.
Oh, okay. I need to put my glasses on. Yeah, that book, because again, nobody knows about that book. It's not well known,
Yeah,
but that's one of our young stories. That's the book.
that's cool.
So it's worth getting and it's worth having in your archery library. So Art's that's among probably one of Art's last hunting adventures. Now Art just spends the last few years of his life going around doing lectures, showing his movie um, in theaters around the country, and he's working with youth groups. Um, you have a picture of the movie theater, the Adams Theater there in Detroit,
Yes.
which I think is a cool picture. This is the theater where Art and Fred Bear meet.
Hmm.
26-year-old Fred Bear goes to this theater to see Art's movie, Alaskan Adventures, sits in the audience, listens to Art tell the story, and meets Art, goes to was it Lions Club or Sertoma Club meeting later where Art's going to be a speaker and introduces himself to Art, and they become friends and they start making equipment together. Um, that is a pinnacle moment in the history of
Yeah,
the bow.
I'd say so. Talk about a milestone.
Yeah. So now another, I think, milestone. Let's say, Art is now spending a lot of time promoting the sport. He doesn't, he's got the resume. Been there, done that.
Yeah.
I'm man, I've done it. He's doing a lot of lecturing. He's doing a lot of speaking, working with different groups. In 1934, there's the World's Fair in Chicago, and Art spent a lot of time living with friends. Again, he didn't have a lot of money. He spent a lot of time living with friends in Detroit and also in Chicago. In 1934, there was the World's Fair in Chicago, and Art had a shooting demonstration and a lecture during the World's Fair. And many, many people went to the World's Fair to see Art shoot and to listen to him talk.
Hmm.
And after the talk, if you went up to Art, Art would hand you one of these tokens you're looking at here, a medallion.
No
It's
way.
about the size of a 50-cent piece. And it says sportsmanship is fair play. Um, and it's and you can see Art's down here. I've got one here. Um,
Let me see.
Glasses on. Okay, so
That's so good. These coins
remember,
are cool.
yeah, it says remember, clean living pays, and then it has the Art Young signature. Sports Show, World's Fair, 1934 Chicago.
Wow.
And on the other side, real sportsmanship is fair play.
Those are so cool. Those are awesome coins. It's interesting
Those
he
are
had those made.
awesome.
He had those made just for that one event.
And he held this in his hand, and he handed it to someone who came to the show, came to one of the shows there during the World's Fair, and they kept it, and they kept it as a souvenir from the show, also from Art. Now, these are not that hard to find, believe it or not. You can get these on eBay every now and then. You'll see them show up on eBay. When we first learned as a collector, when we first learned of these tokens back, I'd say back in the 1980s, when I first became aware of them, um, this is pre-eBay, pre-internet. It was assumed they must be pretty rare, and a few people that had them were asking, $500 a piece for these. Um, Now you can find them on eBay every now and then. I pick them up when I can because I'll give them out as gifts, just like Art would give them out as gifts to people there at the World's Fair. If I have somebody come and visit me, especially if I have a teenager or somebody come and visit me, um, and they show a real interest in the sport and in the history, I'll give them one of these tokens as, a keepsake and as a
That's really
memory
awesome.
of our visit. Um,
How many of these do you have? Would you say?
I probably have a dozen or so
Do
in
you?
my
Nice.
stack over here now. But I gave one out last weekend.
Did you
So,
really?
um, yeah, so I just
That's
pick them
awesome.
up when I can.
Yeah, this one's $54.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Yep, you can find them. There's a decent amount of listings on eBay for these.
I give away my secret. Now I won't be able to buy them anymore.
You better hurry. You, you got a week before this one launches. Go buy it now. Buy it now. That's funny.
So, many people ask, what about family? Did Art have a family? You never hear him talk about or write about or read about anything, of a wife or children or anything like that. But Art did marry a lady. This is Art's wife. And she had aspirations of an acting career.
Hmm.
She wanted to be on the stage in New York. Fine looking lady, apparently had, a career in mind when she married Art. And Art had no desire to live in New York City.
Hmm.
And she would not give up on it. And this led to their split and their divorce. And they were only married a few years. And I asked Chuck this, the grandson. I asked Chuck this recently. Do you know how long they were married? And he really wasn't even sure how long they were married. It was just a very short time.
Hmm.
He thought around 4 years, but they did have one child, uh, and that one child then had five children.
Hmm.
So Art's grandson, his name is Chuck, is still living in Pennsylvania. He's 90 years old.
Wow.
And and Chuck, a senior member of the Pope and Young Club, Chuck at 90 years old, still a very, very sharp man. Still has his mind. And the last time I saw him at the Pope and Young convention, he was getting around pretty good.
Hmm.
He takes after his grandfather. He's a pretty stout man,
Yeah.
and you can see the family resemblance in Chuck. But
He's got some
Art died.
Mad Men vibe going on right here in this picture.
Yeah, yeah. What's the word you use when he was a baller?
Yeah, he's a baller. That's a baller. That's a baller picture right there.
Yeah,
Uh,
I like this picture of Art because you can tell, hey, you know, I got my stuff.
yeah, right. That's awesome.
So, but Art being being the kind of guy he was very sure of himself, very confident, very strong, always in charge, always in control. Um, he had some pain, and he didn't do anything about it. He had some pain in his lower abdomen and didn't do anything about it. Turns out it was his appendix,
Mm.
and his appendix ruptured. And because he had not done anything about it, if he had gone to the hospital, they could have removed it and he would have been fine. But it ruptured, and Art died from that ruptured appendix in February of 1935.
Dang. What a shame, huh?
Yeah. He was only 53 years old.
No kidding.
So
Oh, man.
all all the all the life that he had left in him, all the stories that he could have told, um, left with him, at 53 years old.
Hmm.
He didn't write a book, unlike Pope. Pope wrote 5 books. Compton never wrote a book, but Art was going to write a book. And when I was at the Pope and Young Club Museum a few years ago, and we were boxing everything up when the museum was closing there in Chatfield, and we were going to ship everything down to Springfield at the Bass Pro Complex, I found a hardbound book, and it had the title and the author, Art Young. And holy cow, Art didn't write anything, but here is a book by Art Young. So is this an unknown biography, autobiography of Art? And I opened it up, and the pages were all blank.
Oh, no. Dang it.
It was apparently a mock-up or something he
Oh,
had
cool.
done
Yeah.
in preparation for his book, and this was going to be the title, and this was going to be how it's going to look, and he had the artwork all done.
Dang.
But there was no content. There was absolutely zero content inside the book.
What was the working title?
Oh gosh, I knew you were going to ask that, and I can't remember. I don't remember everything.
Yeah,
But,
there you go. He is human, people. He is human. That's
uh,
awesome. That's great.
so now we have Ishi's dead, Pope's dead, and now Young is dead. Uh, but Compton is the last of the living. He lives till 1938, but we haven't told the Pope story yet.
Hmm.
So do you want to continue with the Pope story, or
What do you think?
look, looking at the time?
What do you think?
Um, it's a pretty significant story by its own.
Is
But
it? I
we
think we
can
could
do
do.
it.
I think we could do Pope on his own. Save that one.
Okay. Let's
We're
do
at,
Pope on his own.
yeah, we're like at an hour and 40 minutes right now. So I think
Okay.
doing
Yeah,
him
we
on
don't
his
want to
own.
burn everybody out. So
Yeah.
I think Pope can stand on his own. It's a well documented story. There's a lot of information and data available for the Pope story.
Okay.
Where you have to dig. You have to really dig to find information about Compton.
Mhm.
You have to dig pretty good to find things about Young. With Pope, it's pretty well documented,
Yeah.
so we can get into some pretty good level of detail with Pope.
Cool. Awesome. Well, to wrap, kind of touch this show down, do you have anything you wanted to share, show and tell at all about Compton or Art?
I do want to share. Again, I said he wrote 5 books. Um, we all know this is the book that ignited the flames of our sport, hunting with the
Hmm.
bow and arrow,
Yeah.
1923. Um,
Yes.
this is the book that people like Doug Easton, who was in the hospital being treated for a hunting accident, and a friend brought him a copy of this book. This is the book that got Doug Easton interested in archery and bow hunting. This is the book that got Roy Case interested in archery and bow hunting. This is the book that got so many of our pioneers into our sport. He also wrote, and we've already showed, The Adventurous Bowmen about their time in Africa.
Yep.
But he wrote this book, Yahi Archery,
Ah, okay.
in 1918. And this book is what Pope had gotten from Ishi during their time together about how the Yahi hunted
Huh.
with the bow and arrow,
Very cool.
about how they made their bows, about how they made their arrows, about how they got close to animals.
And it looks like that was published by the University of Berkeley.
Yeah, the University of California, Berkeley.
Yeah.
Um, the one in the picture you're showing there is from my collection. It was actually Pope's copy.
No way.
Yeah. Now he wrote the medical history of Ishi in 1920, and this is after the autopsy that he did on Ishii. Um, Before Ishii died, even he was doing a lot of study on the man and measuring and weighing and uh, doing all things doctors would do, I guess, to check out your health. And then when Ishii did pass, and the autopsy and the things that he learned from the
Hmm.
autopsy, they're all in this book called The Medical History of Ishii. That was his 1920 book. And then he got so, Pope was meticulous in his study. He was someone that was never happy if he wasn't learning something every
Hmm.
day. And he got so into the bow and arrow that he wrote this book in 1923, A Study of Bows and Arrows. Now, in this book, what he did was he researched bows and arrows from all across the world, all kinds, modern bows, native bows, bows from the Pacific. And this is a study of all the bows, their performance, Japanese bows, Japanese archery, their performance, their construction. It's all about, and you can imagine the kind of man that Pope was, the detail that he goes
Oh
into in this
yeah.
book called The Study of Bows. So these first soft cover editions, again published by the University of California, Berkeley. This one was 1923 when it came out, but then they came out with a 1930 edition of this, which was hardbound.
Hmm.
Um, so those are really interesting. Um,
Gene's going through his extensive collection for any of you guys listening to this and not watching.
did I already did I already do Yahi archery? Yep, I did
Yes.
Yahi. Yep, that was a second copy. Now this is kind of neat because this is a bound edition. This was Pope's personal from personal his personal library,
Oh,
and
cool.
inside this and with his handwriting in this book. Um, he's got the study of bows and arrows, and he's got the medical history of Ishii, and he's got Yahi archery.
Mm, all in
This
one.
and this came from his personal library.
Whoa, that's amazing.
I gotta reach.
Oh, we got some arrows, people.
My love for arrows.
I know your love for arrows.
This was one of Compton's arrows that came out of
Whoa.
that estate. This is a blunt, and the cresting uh, is pretty unique to Compton himself. And then I have a Pope arrow. Remember, Compton taught Pope. Here is a Pope arrow, and
Okay.
this is a pretty well known, he collar and cresting pattern of Pope, and the way he would cut his feathers. Um, and he would number his arrows. Oftentimes, if he was using the arrows to hunt with, he would number them. This one has a number on it, but the the blunt on this one is the same as the blunt on the Compton arrow.
Ah.
Uh, then it's got a little screw on the end to. It's just a sleeve, a metal sleeve
Yeah.
with a screw in the end to shoot and kill small game. Now here's one of Pope's hunting arrows.
Okay.
Again, the same cresting pattern, same colors, the same feathers cut,
Numbered. Yep.
numbered, and the broadhead. Now, trying to.
Oh yeah, there it is. Yes. Look at that
Okay,
broadhead.
so early in their hunting career, um, Pope and Young were making their own broadheads. As they got more and more into it, they just couldn't keep up.
Hmm.
I'm shooting so many arrows now,
Yeah.
especially before they went off to Africa. They just couldn't make their own arrows broadheads anymore. So they contracted with a company called California Byproducts. And California Byproducts then took their design. It was Pope and Young's design,
Mm.
and started making these California Byproducts heads. And these, to a collector, they're pretty recognizable as a CBP, California Byproducts head with a tubing ferrule. But these were made from Pope and Young's design
That's
that
cool.
they gave to. Um, Now I don't know if you can see behind me here, but
Yep.
uh, I'm going to stand up.
This is great. People, you should be watching this if you're listening to this. So he's standing up. He's going over to a shadow box back behind us.
In this shadow box, can you still hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. In this shadow box, I thought it would be pretty special to be able to put Pope, Young, and Compton all in the same display.
Oh, cool.
So if you ever get a chance to see my collection at a show or come to the house here and see my collection, this is Compton's bow over here. This is the Ishi bow. In the middle is Pope's bow. I don't think I sent you, I wish I had sent you a picture of this Pope bow. But this Pope bow is dated and signed,
No way.
named, and he named his bows during that period. It was pretty common for him and Art both to name their bows. This bow is called Bighorn. He named it Bighorn, and it was in 1924. And if you could see it, I wish you could see it. There is the napped arrowhead that was on the Compton bow
Oh,
under
yes.
the word Ishi is the same arrowhead on this Pope bow, which again adds credibility to my story that Pope is the one who did that
Right. I'm
on
looking.
Compton's bow.
I'm frantically looking on my phone because I thought you did send me one of where I saw it
I
said
thought it,
Bighorn on it.
yeah. And if not, I can send it to you after. Maybe you
Okay.
can edit it into the show. And then on the right is a Yewood bow made by Art. So in one display, we can see Compton, Pope, and Young all, their bows.
That's so cool. That's the coolest display ever. Oh my gosh. Now what do you
Now
have? What's this thing?
we're going to bring over another one.
Okay. Shadow box after shadow box.
Okay. In this shadow box are the items that Pope one of the bows and quiver and arrows that he used on the Africa hunt.
Oh, okay.
So this bow, you probably can't see it, but it's a Yewood bow that's backed with rawhide, and the sapwood has been taken off.
Hmm.
And if you read Elmer's books back in 1926, he wrote a book called Archery. He talks about Pope being one of the few people that would take the sapwood off his bows and then he would back them. Well,
Hmm.
people used Yewood to make bows because the sapwood was elastic and the heartwood would compress and it was a perfect bow wood. But Pope would take off the sapwood and put rawhide backing on it, and this is wrapped with silk thread.
Oh, is that what those stripes are on it?
Sorry.
That's what the stripes are? Is that like red
Yeah,
colored stripes?
these stripes are silk thread.
Hmm.
And if you look at the picture of one of the pictures, they killed 7 lions when they were in Africa, but one of those pictures has Pope kneeling next to one of the lions with a bow in his hand that has these
Oh, no kidding.
silk thread wraps. It appears to be this bow.
Oh, man.
Now, this bow came from Pope's family. I got it directly from the Pope descendants. So,
No kidding.
it is absolutely documented as a Pope bow. And it appears to be the bow in that picture of Pope with the lion. The quiver is deer hide, probably a black-tailed deer taken in California. Pope wouldn't have bought a deer hide to make a quiver from, so this is probably a deer that he had killed himself. And on it was a tag that, a round little tag that had written on it "Lion Hunt."
Mm.
So the Pope family had kept this as an heirloom from their grandfather, great grandfather, along with the bow and the arrows, as items that he had used while they were in Africa. I have one last item over here, and I'll
Okay.
bring it up, see if we can make this work.
Maybe set it on the chair.
You read my mind.
Oh, yeah. That's perfect.
Yeah. hard to get it to
Yeah, it's just
balance.
just wide enough to not straddle. Yeah.
But Pope's, when I got the bighorn bow, and the Pope's bow with the name Bighorn on it, that also came from the Pope family,
Mm.
uh, directly from the one of Pope's daughters. This quiver came along with that bow, and the arrows that are in this quiver came along with that bow, and this belt pack over here came along with the bow. And inside the belt pack are some homemade broadheads,
Oh,
if you can
wow.
see them over here,
Yeah, yeah.
that Pope has
Dude,
inside this.
how cool is that?
And so I think, you can see the little belt pack here in the
Yeah,
picture
yeah. I see.
and the quiver here on Pope's side.
Wow.
So just a little personal history of
Heck
Saxton
yeah.
Pope.
That's incredible, man. Dude, your collection just blows my mind. Like, it just blows my mind. It's a life's work.
It is. It is. But it's a passion. I love it. I love the fact that people care about it. At the Compton Rendezvous last weekend, for the last several years, I've set up some of my collection at the Compton Rendezvous when we were in Berrien Springs because we had a concrete block building there that I could set my collection up.
Mm.
We could lock it at night. It was secure. We didn't moving from Berrien Springs down to Noblesville this year. There wasn't a building for me to put the collection in this year. Plus the fact that I was kind of busy taking care of all the vendors.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't set my collection up this year. It was pretty satisfying the number of people that came in and say, "Where's your collection? I want to see, I come to see your collection."
No way.
I had a guy say, "I came all the way not this year, last year. I had a guy come in and he said, "I came all the way from California just to see your collection
No way.
here at the show." So it's satisfying. It feels good, that people care. It feels
Absolutely.
good that you're doing this series called The History of the Bow. People do care about our history. And the number of people that came up to me at Compton this past weekend who didn't know me is, and I'd be talking to someone, and apparently I have a pretty
You have a
unique voice.
recognizable voice.
Then at least a couple of dozen people at the show this past weekend would say, "Wait a minute, I know that voice. That's the guy on the push."
I love it. Oh, that's
And the
good. That
number of
makes me
people,
feel good. That makes me feel
and
good.
the number of people, I didn't realize. I talked to you about this before. I didn't realize the number of people that listen to your podcast is substantial.
Yeah.
And the number of people that came up to me at the show last weekend and said, "We're listening to you on the push. We love it. The History of the Bow series. We love it. We can't wait for more." So you're doing a good thing.
Thank
And
you.
thank you for letting me be part of it.
I couldn't do it without you. Quite literally. That's so great. Yeah, that's probably one of the like highest feedback shows series that I've had so far, like doing this podcast. I mean, we're well into the 400s, and the feedback on the history of the bow is like overwhelming. The amount of emails and messages and DMs that I get on a daily basis of people just like giving you accolades on the collection and the way you're weaving the history and how much they're learning. And it's awesome. It's so good.
Well, again, from my heart, I thank everybody for listening, and I thank everybody for giving the feedback to both me and to Matt,
Yep.
and let Matt know how
That's
much
right.
you appreciate him doing this.
Yeah, the more feedback we get on stuff and it's positive, the more we're gonna just lean into that, right? If this is what you guys want, we're gonna continue to give you as much history as possible in this series. That's for sure. That's great.
Good.
Well, Gene, another banger, buddy. You did great. Nice work.
Well, thanks again. We do the best we can with what we got.
There you go. Why don't you let everyone know where to find you? Remind them again.
Okay. All right. My email is gene@archerycollecting.com. You can find me on Instagram at Gene Hopkins 3448, or you can find me on Facebook under Gene Hopkins, or on Facebook as Archery Collecting.
There he is. I'm going to just share the screen real quick. There you go. There's Gene's Instagram account right there. History of the Bow series. We got the Ishi stuff up top and tons of awesome archery collecting content on this page. Go check it out. Gene, appreciate your time today, buddy. As always, you did a great job.
Thank you, Matt.
Awesome.
We'll talk soon about Saxton Pope.
Yes, Saxton Pope is next. Gene, hang on the line. Listeners, if you love what you're seeing and hearing here on the channel with the History of the Bow series, go check out Gene's Instagram page. And while you're on the internet, head on over to thepusharchery.com. It serves as a portal to the Push Archery Center of Knowledge. Tons of amazing online courses helping you with this beautiful sport, as well as our Made in America quivers, the Ridge Runner, the Alpha Pack, and the Delta Pocket Quiver. Appreciate you guys being here. We love you. Get primal. Yes, Gene. Nice work, buddy. All right.